Hey, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'm a very huge fan of yours.
Thank you. Sorry to keep you waiting. I had to find a charger. So yeah, thanks.
Oh yeah, no problem. So diving right in, this film deals with funding performing arts and kind of the egos behind the scenes that can crop up from that. So I was kind of wondering if this was maybe like a metaphor for maybe filmmaking.
uh you could say that. Yeah, yeah. But I didn't want to be too I mean, there was a risk of being self-pitying and playing, the put upon artist. So I didn't want to go down that road, and I wanted the artists to be tricky characters, and you're not quite sure how you feel about them. So I tried to be more like a referee and not take sides. That you sometimes I'm on Gwendolyn Christie's side, sometimes I'm on Fatma's side. So yeah, that was the way to explore it. Otherwise, it just becomes very predictable if it's just bad financier versus great genius artist, or the person who thinks they're a genius. That, etc. etc.
Yeah, and well, it's anything but predictable. I think that's the last thing I would describe any of your movies. Would you say that this movie also kind of calls out elitism? And I think it's kind of interesting because it kind of has like a eat the rich message, maybe.
I wouldn't say it calls that out. I mean, it does in a very sly manner. It might call out the denial about elitism.
Mhm.
I mean, I have to confess, I'm middle class. I went to a posh school, but so many people in the industry try and hide that by calling out other people who went to posh schools. So,
Mhm.
you know, I've seen people call themselves underdogs. It's like, no, you went to like a top fee-paying school, like a top school. How can you call yourself an underdog? So there's an element of that. But I mean, I that's a whole other conversation because if I think of my school, um, maybe it's too much information, but one of my classmates is my landlord. So
Mhm.
he got very successful, financially speaking. One of my other classmates cannot get on the housing ladder. It's just impossible. He's just renting. So, I think within these schools, there's quite a variety. Not everyone is an oligarch's, child. But where was I don't know what point I was trying to make by that actually. But I think what it is, that's what I was going to say. I wouldn't, regardless of which school I went to, I would not judge someone for having gone to a privileged school. If someone is talented, they're talented. But I think the wider issue in the film industry is it's so. I'm not talking about myself here. I'm talking about working class people who just cannot, especially in Britain. I think they're doing a lot to give support to filmmakers from working class backgrounds. But the whole problem is most things are in London. But by going to London, the money you pay in rent, you just cannot live on the fees that these films pay. So it's a very hard thing to crack. We've seen a hell of a lot of movement in diversity, but I think what we haven't cracked is class divisions. That most people who are making films are middle class or rich, including myself.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's also kind of interesting because there's a 70s film called The Big Feast, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. Had you seen
Oh, that
that?
one. Yeah, it's funny because we were actually going to do a live soundtrack to that back in 2000. We couldn't get the rights because at that point it was between rights.
Hmm.
But yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I do remember it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's such a wonderfully bizarre film, and it was funny because as I was watching um Flux, I immediately was thinking of that, giving me that kind of vibe. That and of course, like the cook, the thief, his wife and her lover.
I remember that one, that's for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I saw that. I think I first saw. Yeah, I saw that on a double bill with the Discreet Charm with the Bourgeoisie.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, that was quite. That was at the Scala. That was great. Yeah, yeah.
And am I kind of off base where I kind of got a giallo feel? Would you say that was something you were going for?
It might have been a leftover from my previous work. I think in general, I think more Franju than Giallo, to be honest. But I think maybe Giallo was stealing from Franju. I mean, films like Eyes Without a Face or Judex.
Yeah.
I mean, I was copying little ticks from Judex. Every time Judex appears, the characters say Judex to themselves, and so I kind of took a more regular name like Jan Stevens, but at a very small level. But no, I think Jello. I mean, I grew up. Well, I wouldn't say I grew up on those films, but I really have a soft spot for the the lighting, the atmosphere, the music. With this film, yeah, not so much, no.
And now, of course, the sound design is fantastic. So, you and Tim Harrison actually kind of recorded these all practically. Is that right?
Yeah, Tim for sure, but also because I used to be in this band called the Sonic Catering Band. So the other two members, Tim Kirby and Colin Fletcher, they did a lot as well. So it was a whole. I mean, Tim was a huge part of it. There's no question. But there were some elements which were the band where we used the same equipment to make those sounds. Tim did some sonic catering, as in Tim Harrison did some sonic catering as well, and he had this Eventide flanger. So we're putting a lot of sounds through this flanger. I think what I really loved about Tim, he uses analog gear a lot, which is quite rare these days. So he brought this Nagra in, and it really helps the sound. I think it really, yeah, it was a very enjoyable process, I have to say. And he had so many great ideas about how to do things. And I remember with the trips to the shops, and he looked at it and he suggested, why don't we have Foley for things you don't see? Which I love that idea he had. So all that miming has Foley put to it.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely feels like the ultimate kind of ASMR sort of film. With a lot of the sound design, the practical sounds that you use throughout.
Yeah, I do like my ASMR. Yeah, I kind of. I'm partial to those videos.
Now, I was kind of curious with the Edna May's cookbook. There's a blink and you miss it, sketches of little characters in there. Are they based on anybody? It's like a cast or crew Easter egg.
Oh, is that the 9 Types of Husband? That one on the left hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. One of them is actually Pietro Greppi, the producer, one of the two producers. But I didn't know that. I basically wrote down. When you do these things, you're always worried about spillover on a page. So I always kind of write the following page just to make sure we're covered. And Felicity Hickson, who did the design, did the drawings, without my knowing, she drew Pietro Greppi, and I think Ed Derry as well, the singer. But without telling me, I kind of looked it up. Oh God, that's Pietro. So yeah, that was more her thing than mine.
Nice. Yeah, it seemed like it was probably maybe some specific people you had in mind, but it's kind of a nice little blink or miss it kind of thing. So what would you say was the most challenging aspect of this film? Was there one particular element that was really difficult?
Well, practically speaking, the shoot was just really unpleasant. Just because of the pandemic and the limited time, we had 14 days with all the complications around the pandemic. It was quite a shock to the system for me. Tonally, I think what was very difficult was getting the flatulence, the whole stomach thing right, because I think we wanted to give it this kind of solemn air, because we were so used to, this kind of almost this kind of, how would you call this? Almost this automatic reaction where you just laugh. It's so often associated with, kind of frat boy humor, which is fair enough. But I tried to, look at it more seriously. I think this is not just a symptom of celiac disease; it can be a symptom of Crohn's, of irritable bowel syndrome, so many things. So we didn't want to make light of it, But how do you do that? How, even with the best intentions, when you're dealing with that kind of subject, it's very, very tricky to pull off. And I remember someone said to me, "Oh yeah, your fart jokes were not very funny." And it's like, well, that was the idea. But anyway, so yeah, that was tricky, and only an audience can say. Each person's going to have a very different reaction to that. But yeah, the shooting was tough. That was very tough. I can't deny that.
Okay. Wrapping up. What would you want to be like the one takeaway from this film?
I think if it opens up a conversation about the stomach and all these things you're not supposed to talk about, or you can only talk about with some kind of punchline. I think if someone can say if someone can have the confidence to say, I have very embarrassing private stomach issues, and not fearing being laughed at, that would be great. Yeah, I'd be happy just with that, to be honest.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And, thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you. No, thanks a lot for your time. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
See you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.